David Lynch passed away, I knew that I was going to want to say something just about the impact that he had on me as a lover of film and horror and surrealism. And I thought for a while, like, how can I, make that fit in with my channel? Because I talk about internet horror here. And the longer that I sat and thought about it, I said, of course, I can talk about whatever I want. It's my YouTube channel, but I love to try to keep it on theme for what people come to me for. And the longer that I thought about it, the more I realized how many similarities there are between David Lynch's work and, like, core tenets of what I consider internet horror. So I just want to sit and talk about that a little bit today. This is a very, from the hip, emotional, not thoroughly researched video. This is, me eulogizing one of the most talented visionaries that existed in my lifetime. So, if you're expecting a traditional video essay, this will not be that. If you're still feeling, the emotional weight of losing David Lynch and, wanna listen to another weirdo online talk about it, you may be in the right place. Hello, my name is Glitchwitch.jpg. I make videos about internet horror, which means analog horror, digital horror, creepypastas, internet urban legends, internet ARGs. Sometimes I also talk about survival horror video games, and sometimes I do talk about movies as well. And if you've clicked on this video just because you love David Lynch and maybe aren't fully aware of what I mean when I say internet horror, I'll give you a little breakdown. Internet horror, as defined by me, is horror created on the internet. Obviously, that makes sense. But it is a medium to me that has existed pretty much since the turn of the century, early 2000s, with internet horror narratives being put on, this newfangled thing, the internet. Creepypasta, you may have heard of. It is horror stories published online, often copy and pasted, which is where copypasta, creepypasta, the title comes from, often presented to, appear like it is a real thing that happened, not a fictional story. Obviously, as time has progressed, that element, we've kind of lost it. Similarly to how with the Blair Witch Project, people believe that that was real. Found footage nowadays, it's really hard to get people to believe that it's real. I would say creepypasta is an evolution of, the kind of ARG experience that the Blair Witch Project gave. And from creepypasta, it has turned into alternate reality games that are internet-based. Alternate reality games are games that require the player or the viewer to get involved and help solve the mystery, play the game. These predate the internet. They go much farther back, but the internet is a great medium for them. And from ARGs, we've also seen unfiction projects, which are kind of like an ARG where you remove the player part of it, but it's kind of a narrative video that's blending fact and fiction. You're not quite sure, but it's not always necessarily traditional found footage. And then some of the latest evolutions of internet horror is analog horror, which is video medium telling, some sort of horror narrative, traditionally, originally utilizing analog technology like VHS, cassette tape, etc. But it's kind of evolved into just scary internet video. It still falls under the term analog horror just because it's what's convenient to use. So why do I think these things have anything to do with David Lynch? David Lynch, great American filmmaker. Really, I think was probably the best living filmmaker, in my humble opinion. until he passed away in January. And of course, there are other great filmmakers that were his contemporaries, Martin Scorsese and, Brian De Palma and Francis Ford Coppola and all these people. But there has never been someone to have just the brain that he did, the creativity that he did, because it's just it's different. I know that that's such a, I'm not like other girls thing to say, like, it's just different, you wouldn't understand, but like literally we're not on the same wavelength as him. We're just not. And I think that he really was a master of horror. And I don't think he is called that enough. I think that a lot of, like, cinephiles choose to say, like, oh, yes, his movies are scary. They, can be horrific. But they won't come out with their full chest and use the H word because they think that he's, like, too good for horror, which I think is bullshit, because horror is one of the greatest genres that humanity has had for eons. And he was a master at it. He has scared me in ways that, traditional horror filmmakers can't even attempt to touch. I think that the way that he dealt with horror and the way that he channeled horror is what makes internet horror so similar to his work. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here and saying that creepypastas come close to the level of craft that a David Lynch film did. That's not what I'm saying at all. But what I'm saying is, as far as, like, even coming close to tapping into the weird shit that he did, internet horror is it. Like, you don't see modern filmmakers even getting close to whatever the hell was going on with David Lynch, but you see the experimentation from these internet horror creators. And I love that, and I think he would love that too. I don't even know if he knew what a creepypasta was, but I think he would find it neat and interesting because it's just creative people flexing their weird creative energy. So what about David Lynch's horror do I find so, like, unique and unlike anything else? And to me, there are a few things. I think the key elements, and I'll go into them after I name them, he is a master of liminal horror. And that's a term that's floated around a lot these days in internet horror. But true liminality exists in David Lynch's films. And the actual dictionary definition of liminal is occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold, and also relating to a transitional or initial stage of a process. So he deals with that, literally, in his work. Not all of it, but in a lot of it. And we love liminal things in internet horror. Sometimes it's just like a cheap cash grab term, but sometimes it's genuinely happening. I'll expand elsewhere. The other thing about David Lynch's work that, like, you cannot deny the skill as a horror filmmaker is he knows what evil is. I'm obsessed with this concept of there being evil movies. There was a Twitter thread I saw probably 3 or 4 years ago now that's like, what is an evil movie? And, like, name your favorite evil movie. And an evil movie isn't a malicious movie. It isn't a movie that's, graphic and horrible. It is a movie that contains evil. And so much of his work does. And he wasn't afraid to explore what evil is. And there's nothing more horrific than that, because the evil that he explored in his work is real. Like, it's real. It's real things. Some things that you can't explain, that you can't articulate in words. But he captures that feeling in a way that you confront it and it's uncomfortable, but it's, like, palatable almost in a weird way. And it's like I'm getting chills thinking about that. But first, I'm going to talk about liminality and how it relates to David Lynch's work. and how it relates to internet horror. So the obvious David Lynch, example of liminality is the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks. And Twin Peaks is such a unique creation because it's everything. It's funny, it's comforting, it's warm, it's terrifying, it's horrific, it's silly, it's action-packed. I don't know how one thing can contain so many things yet work, but it does. And the Black Lodge in Twin Peaks, I mean, I can't even begin to explain it easily in an amount of time that is suitable. You could make an entire video essay just on what the Black Lodge is. I'm sure there are video essays on what the Black Lodge is. So I'm going to quote from the show what the character Wyndham Earle described the Black Lodge as. For there is another place, the White Lodge's opposite, of almost unimaginable power, chock full of dark forces and vicious secrets. No prayers dare penetrate this frightful maw. Spirits there care not for good deeds and priestly invocations. They are like to rip the muscle from our bones, as greet you with a happy good day. And if harness these spirits, this hidden land of unmuffled screams and broken hearts will offer up a power so vast that its bearer might render the earth itself to his liking. This is like a in-between place that souls get trapped in, typically evil souls, and, the demonic entity that is the catalyst of Twin Peaks, Bob, that possesses Laura Palmer's father, who then kills her. That's where they think that he comes from, is from the Black Lodge. And, in the return, Cooper ends up stuck in here. Laura is waiting in here. I don't want to say a real thing, but it's grounded in real ideas. This was a real concept. Aleister Crowley wrote about this. Some occultists considered it to be not like a literal place, but like the concept of where spirits come from. And, I mean, essentially what David Lynch is dealing with the Black Lodge, it's like tulpa theory. It's this idea of creating an entity like Bob, Is Bob real, or is Bob the evil of Laura's dad manifested into a new separate person? It's heavy. He's heavy, man. There's a lot going on. Again, it's this other place, this in-between, this non-concrete place that, so much of the iconic moments of the series happen there. And the spaces that he creates in his films, even when they're not literally this othering place like the Black Lodge, they just feel unpermanent and they feel fleeting and strange and not, typical. Even in his non-horror movie, his G-rated Disney movie, The Straight Story, there's just certain things, like when they do flashbacks to Sissy Spacek's character losing her son, and things like that, and it feels off, and that, under this happy facade, there's shit going down. And that's always kind of been his thing. I mean, Blue Velvet very much is the most obvious, sweet, happy Americana, but there's something bad going on. It's like most of his narratives live in another plane. It's not a dream, but it's not a nightmare. It's something else, and I think that's where that liminality comes from. And we see that so much in internet horror. It feels, there can be a ground in reality, but something is slightly off. Something is, peeking around the corner. I think some of the most successful internet horror stuff is when the villain or the creature is more of a humanoid, entity that's coming after you. And that's really all you see in David Lynch's films, is they're humans. There are scary humans. There are weird, unconventional humans, like the Mystery Man in Lost Highway, which is my personal favorite David Lynch movie. Yeah, he's a man, but he's a little off. I talk a lot on this channel about the analog horror scary face, which is when you take a usually humanoid face and fuck it up, essentially. And I think that, that in itself has that same kind of, the uncanny valley of it all. And while, David Lynch's faces, his figures aren't always necessarily like uncanny valley. Just the way that they speak almost sometimes is uncanny valley. It feels off, it feels strange and weird, and just off-putting, but also kind of warm and welcoming, and it's such a strange juxtaposition. And then going on to the concept of like evil. Like I said, I came across that Twitter thread a while ago. It was like this idea of like what are movies you've seen that feel evil, and loved that list because I found several of my new favorite movies from it. But I think that a lot of his work contains evil. I think Twin Peaks, obviously, this concept of Bob and whatever he is and what happens to Laura, and the way that story is told, it feels evil. You can't watch, Fire Walk with Me and not feel the presence of something just wrong. You don't have to be able to articulate why it's wrong. Obviously, there are obvious reasons why it's wrong, but it transcends words. He creates a feeling that is so off-putting, it cannot be described with words. It's just beyond. And, he facilitates great performances from actors, because like Cheryl Lee as Laura Palmer, just one of the most horrifying performances in like the history of movies, TV, whatever, in every iteration of her, whether I'm talking about the show, the movie, or The Return. It's just chilling. It's the ending of The Return and her screaming at the end of The Return. I feel sick when I think about it, genuinely, and it takes a lot. Like, I'm one of those people that I've seen every nasty, gory movie you can think of, and they don't really faze me anymore. But that feeling that I get when I think about Laura Palmer is 12 times worse than, Cannibal Holocaust or a Serbian film. It cuts you down to your soul. And Laura, that's not the only example to me. I think Lost Highway is a deeply evil movie. I love Lost Highway. And when I look at Lost Highway, I think that is the movie that made me go, horror can be like this? I think I didn't even know it was horror at the time, but when I look at my taste in horror now, it's absolutely just completely curated by David Lynch, because it is that I love the tension and the foreboding and, oftentimes no answers, and that's the scariest part of all. You're just left, like, reeling and looking around and wondering, like, what the fuck just happened? There's no answer. There's no, it's not even just like, the evil's still out there. You can't even quantify what it is always. The sequence in Lost Highway that, to me, has hand-curated what I love, what just makes my brain tick when it comes to horror, is at the beginning, when Fred Madison and his wife are at their house, and there's a VHS tape that comes to their doorstep, and they open the VHS tape, and they put it in the player, and it's their house. It's footage of their house, and I hate that. Like, that is so deeply just nauseating and upsetting to me. And that's honestly something I see a ton in internet horror. Like, that has been directly taken. There's an incredible creepypasta that I think is deeply Lynchian called The Hidden Webpage. Honestly, I could have just made an entire video comparing The Hidden Webpage to David Lynch, because it's so Lynchian. We have in that story, if you're not familiar with it, a man gets contacted by a former internet friend from, the 90s. It's been, 2 decades. Talking about a website they used to visit called The Hole that could only be visited if you were on a certain, web page, and there was one clickable pixel that you had to click just right, and it would take you to the hole. And they don't ever really elaborate on what the hole is, but it's not good, it's weird, and he starts getting links to webcams that have been filming his house since before he even owned his house. It feels incredibly Lynchian. Like, there's no way that author wasn't all up in David Lynch's nachos, you know what I mean? And not in a bad way, in a completely, it's an incredibly unique story, and that author is a great writer and does an incredible job at telling their own story, but you can't tell me that David Lynch wasn't a huge inspiration, and I love that, because honestly, as much as everybody loves him and reveres him, I don't see an evolution of his work in normal cinema. And I don't know if it's a worry of, like, copying, but I think like, I know the term Lynchian is kind of cringy and overused, but, like, it's a genre in itself. Just the surrealism of it all. And that's really all it is surrealist horror. But we don't get it. Like, I don't see it in movies or TV the way that I feel like we could, but I see it every day in internet horror. Analog horror and creepypasta is full of surrealist horror, and are kind of carrying the baton of what David Lynch was doing. And of course, like I said, no one's ever going to be like him, but I just think it's so interesting that there's a lot of stuff that I think, like, cinema bro David Lynch fans would probably eat up sitting on r/no sleep, but they don't want to give it the time of day because it's a creepypasta. Which, that's always at the end of my day, is trying to get more people to take internet horror seriously, and I think that's a valid reason to do so, because, you know, these are the people carrying on the baton. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. But, yeah, this idea of, like, being watched, getting a tape to your front door, I hate it. It's sinister. Everything about Lost Highway, again, is just, it feels wrong and evil. And I can't tell you why. It's just a feeling. Blue Velvet feels evil. You want to talk about evil, capital E evil? Inland Empire is an evil movie. There are 3 movies in my life that have put me in a fugue state. And I'm not bullshitting you. I'm being dead serious, where I blacked out and I don't remember watching it. And not like, oh, I got bored and dozed off. No, I was awake. It was there in front of me. And Inland Empire was one of them. And Inland Empire is the only one not in a theater that's happened to me. The other 2 movies that have put me in a fugue state are the, oh God, what is it? Alphaville did that to me. The Holy Mountain did that to me. And Inland Empire did that to me. And you know what? I love the Holy Mountain. I love Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's one of my others after David Lynch, where he's the top tier. Alphaville's fine. I like Alphaville. It put me up a little bit, obviously. I can't do Inland Empire. It makes me so uncomfortable. I can't watch it again. I don't even remember part of it because it literally, I think, sucked my soul out of my body. And I'm getting freaked out talking about it, because, like, how did he do that? How is he that good? Deeply uncomfortable. You have to be a powerful storyteller to conjure, stealing my soul. And clearly that's given to Jean-Luc Godard, David Lynch, and Alejandro Jodorowsky. So, good company to be in, David Lynch. 2 other great filmmakers. Inland Empire is such a strange beast. That movie chose me. I know that sounds so weird, but it was like the last David Lynch movie I hadn't seen when I was in high school. I had my David Lynch phase, like all the other cinema girlies did when they were in high school. And it was the last one because I couldn't find it. And I don't know what it goes for now. Okay, so it's on Criterion. I don't know what bullshit I'm talking, but when I was 16, 17, it seemed impossible. I couldn't find it. I don't know if it was streaming anywhere, but that was like, I didn't have anything then. Like, there was no stream. Like, there was Netflix and Hulu and stuff. Like, I didn't have it. I didn't get Netflix until I went to college. If you know me, if you've been watching, you'll know I was late to even getting the internet. But it felt like an impossible thing to find. And part of it might have been because it literally was on Criterion, but, my broke high school ass who didn't have a job couldn't afford a $40 DVD. But I went to my local Family Video, and oh, I miss Family Video. Y'all talk about Blockbuster, y'all talk about whatever. Family Video was my video rental store, because they existed into, my teens. They're gone now. But, oh my God, my dad and I, every weekend, we would go to Family Video. We would pick out, that's how I saw Blue Velvet. That's how I saw, you know, probably there had to be other David Lynch movies we got from the video store. Probably that's how we saw The Elephant Man. That's probably how I know I saw Wild at Heart at a midnight screening at my favorite indie theater that's gone now, which is heartbreaking, but that was so special. The first time I ever saw Wild at Heart was in the theaters at midnight. It was so special. We rented Twin Peaks from a library. Like, I had to request it and get it sent in. And so we, like, my dad and I, like, binged it in a week so that, because we had to return the DVD. Like, it's so, again, I'm kind of going off, but this is also me eulogizing David Lynch, so let me have my moment. It's so integral to who I am as a person, like, and my dad and I, it was so special. Like, we bonded so deeply over everything that he made because, like, my dad had loved Dune and my dad had loved Blue Velvet. And so when I come to him and, you know, he'd heard of Twin Peaks but he never watched it when it aired, and I'm like, well, the Blue Velvet guy did Twin Peaks, and, you know, it's the Dune guy made this movie Eraserhead, and, like, we just, to be able to share that with him was so special, and, like, I called him when he died because, like, that was so important to us. And it's, I just said I wasn't gonna cry, but now I feel like I'm gonna cry. But back to Inland Empire. They had Inland Empire for sale at My Family Video because the Family Video would, like, cull its collection and try to only keep, like, what was actually being rented, and they would sell everything else. So I mean, most of my DVD collection comes from My Family Video because I wanted the bullshit rejects that, you know, the normies in my town didn't want. Sorry to sound like such a pick-me, but it's true. And there was Inland Empire. I think I got it for $5. Yes, I believe that cursed copy of Inland Empire chose me and did suck a portion of my soul out. And yes, it's still in my house. And yes, I'm scared to touch it.
I have to keep him engaged while the tax lady searches all his videotapes.
Oh shit.
That's why she's going crazy about
Oh god, she's tweaking in the back. Oh cool, there's just not a second disc. Okay.
Huh?
I don't know, my husband's still never seen it, so one day I'm gonna have to let it reclaim the rest of my soul that, you know, Alphaville and the Holy Mountain didn't claim. That's evil. That's my point. My point is, there is an evil that he can grasp and understand. He's not evil. He's just not afraid to present the evil to you. And that makes a masterful artist. And I think that there are facets of internet horror that are also, like, ballsy enough to touch evil. I don't know if they've ever harnessed evil the way that David Lynch has, but certainly internet stories like Baraska, that story grasps evil. It just does. Like, you can't deny it. McKinney Family Home Videos, that grasps evil. And I know for a fact Nick Catrufo, the director of McKinney Family Home Videos, loves David Lynch and, you know, looks up greatly to David Lynch. And that's a series where you maybe can't even necessarily see the parallels or the similarities, but you know, like, you can just feel the essence of that vision and that, again, willingness to dance with evil. Skinamarink. I know a lot of people, I would say that's the movie that gets compared the most. It's David Lynch's Blair Witch Project. That's what everybody says, which I think is so funny. Because, really, Skinamarink is nothing like the Blair Witch Project. It's a lot like David Lynch movies. It's nothing like the Blair Witch Project. That's just people not knowing what the internet horror is. So they're saying the Blair Witch Project. Because, to me, Skinamarink is, you know, David Lynch making an analog horror movie. And Kyle Edward Ball is a master. I love him. I will shout it from the rooftops. He's one of us. He started on YouTube. Bite-Sized Nightmares was a YouTube channel. It was all, like, the proof of concept for Skinamarink. Made Heck, put that up online, made Skinamarink. He is our golden boy, and I love him. And I do think Skinamarink is another thing that absolutely dances with what evil is. Oh my god. That movie makes me feel the same way that, you know, Inland Empire, Lost Highway, all those do. And there's this weird warmth in it as well. I get that with all of the evil movies I like, where there's this bone-chilling, like, just offness in the air, but at the same time, it feels like you're being embraced. I don't know what that is. I'm not a filmmaker, I'm not a writer, you know, of narratives and things like that, but as a viewer, it's like crack to me. I want more of it. And I do get it with internet horror. Moments in some of these stories, like there are moments in, I'm going to keep saying McKinney because I do think it excels with Dancing with Evil, with this idea of Diana McKinney. If you're not familiar, McKinney Family Home Videos is a found footage style analog horror project by Nick Catrufo, and it deals with this small town church, the Church of the Holy Mother, and how they kind of systematically tear families apart in the name of this religion. And the main antagonist, Diana McKinney, like, she's dancing with evil in a way that, you know, you don't see all the time in horror. There are a million Terrifiers in the world. There are a million nasty, gruesome, gory, whatever movies. And I love gore. It's fun. It's silly. I love Saw movies. I'm not dissing that. But to actually tap into the true horror, the way that David Lynch does, the way that Kyle Edward Ball does, the way that some of these fucking creepypasta do, it's rare and it's so juicy and effective when it happens. Again, you know, like the Hidden Web page, I think absolutely deals with that, like, liminal other unknowable evil, but just in a digital space rather than a physical space, the way that, like, the Black Lodge is. And it's just really, it's really cool because it makes sense how I've pivoted in my interest and my likes and my flavor of horror. Because, you know, I grew up not liking horror. I was a very scared, skittish child. Scooby-Doo scared me. You know what I mean? Like, I was scared. And it took kind of unconventional horror for me to fall in love with it, like David Lynch and like the Blair Witch Project. And I know the Blair Witch Project, I say it's unconventional. It's obviously, like, it's a horror film. What else could it be? But it's groundbreaking, right? You can't deny that. So for me to then, you know, really fall for internet horror the way I have, it's because it's, you know, the same bones are being used. Maybe in a different way, but, like, you know, the ingredients. Bones is a weird... Why did I say bones? I'm not building a Frankenstein here. Ingredients. The same ingredients are being used. Maybe a different meal is being prepared, but the same ingredients are there. And of course, you know, an analog horror cake is never going to taste as good as a David Lynch cake, because nothing will ever taste as good as a David Lynch cake. But it's sure still satisfying, and it makes you excited that, like, oh, we're still using those ingredients. Yay! And I think we're at a really good point now, because we're starting to see internet horror hit mainstream horror. It just got announced that they're putting out a Third Parent movie. Crispin Glover is going to be playing Tommy Taffy, the main villain in the Third Parent. Rob Lowe's going to be in it. Like, it doesn't get much more mainstream than Rob Lowe. My mom's going to go see that. My mother's going to sit through Tommy Taffy because Rob Lowe's in it. That's mainstream, bitch. So I do hope that, you know, horror filmmakers, like, tap in to the surrealism, tap into the weirdness that we have going on in internet horror, because then we'll get more stuff like David Lynch. And of course, like I keep saying, no one's ever going to beat David Lynch. He's one of a kind. Alejandro Jodorowsky is another one that I mentioned earlier, because of Holy Mountain. He's one of a kind. No one's going to be like him either. But I think that there's just this vacuum, this emptiness of surrealism and horror. Sometimes I think the A24, you know, elevated horror thinks they're doing that, but they're not. You know, I think people think that movies, like, and I'm sorry, I'm always taking shots at Ari Aster. It's not his fault, because I don't think he's trying to do this. It's the fan reaction. But his movies are not crazy. Hereditary is a possession movie, and Midsommar is a cult movie. Those are really basic horror tropes. We're not dealing with you know, Thelema and Aleister Crowley and Tulpa theory the way that we are in David Lynch movies. But I think that elevated horror kind of left there to not be a lot of room for the surrealism that we were getting out of people like David Lynch. And you know, he's not the only one to create surrealist horror. Louise Buñuel is a filmmaker that predates David Lynch. That, again, I feel like he's not always called a horror filmmaker. Well, he's certainly a surrealist filmmaker. He made some weird shit. The Exterminating Angel, that's a horror film. I don't care what anyone says. That's a weird, uncomfortable, scary movie. Again, Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's not a horror director necessarily, but surreal for sure. One of my favorites of all time, I talk about a lot on my channel, Peter Greenaway. Another one who deals with evil. That was how I discovered Peter Greenaway, was his movie, The Baby of Macon, kept showing up on the evil movie list. And I was like, my Georgia ass was like, The Baby of Macon? What's that? The Baby of Macon. And that is an evil movie. I can't recommend it to you. I think it's a great movie. It's absolutely evil and deplorable. So if you're into that, check it out. I think sometimes those are, you know, movies like that, they don't really have the warm fuzzy that David Lynch somehow manages to have. But if you're a David Lynch fan, and you want to experience some internet horror that I feel like is carrying the torch of him, you know, check out the things I've already talked about. Like, the Hidden Webpage, absolutely. Unreal. I can't, like, I feel like that creepypasta was written for me specifically. Like, I was literally giggling and twirling my hair because it was so perfectly everything I want out of a story. McKinney Family Home Videos. It's an analog horror series that's great. I'm trying to think of what else. I think Baraska is good. It's not as, like, Lynchian, but just if you want that, like, evil. Yeah, I mean, this has really just been a dumb internet horror girl eulogizing David Lynch because I love him, and I'm so thankful for what he did for just art in general. There will be no one like him, but we gotta keep making weird shit for him because, you know, there'll be someone else. We can't stop making weird stuff. We have to keep making weird stuff, and we have to keep, you know, exploring what it means to be human and what, you know, it means to confront the bad parts of being human. You know, that's what the evil I keep talking about is. It's the bad parts of us. And that's what made him such a brave and just singular filmmaker. That desire to touch what we're all scared to touch. And I think that we have great artists on here, online, that are doing that, because they're not held back by studios and things like that. They can just express themselves. But I hope that, you know, we will keep seeing people take risks on these creators so that we can get more artists out there like David Lynch. I don't know. I love horror. I love surreal horror. I love liminal horror. And I love being scared. And he, I think, introduced me to a way of being scared that I didn't know existed. So I'm very thankful for it. So thank you so much for watching. This was super rambly. I just kind of wanted to word vomit my feelings. And just how cool, you know, just this connection I see between the form of horror that I love so much and a filmmaker that was so integral to me falling in love with art and film and horror and all that. I think I'm sure everyone that subscribed to me loves David Lynch. Like, he's touched so many lives. But thank you so much for watching. I'd like to thank my YouTube members. We have the Creepypasta OC up on screen. And then in Survival Horror Emo, we have E-Rob and So-Called Punk. And in Analog Horror Scary Face, we have Kira Coffer and Alvakin. Thank you guys so much. If you'd like to become a member, there's a little join button down there. But liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, that means the world. I promise that my next video will be a little more structured. There's an Analog Horror series that I'm very excited about, that I love, that I was going to cover this week, but I want to do it a little more justice, so I'm trying to give it more time for, like, research and to, like, collect my thoughts, so that's why this was, like, a word vomity video. Also, last week it was, like, just diabolical in the Glitchwitch household. I had the worst allergy attack of my life. I'm sure you can hear it, because the pollen has hit, If you're from the southeastern United States, you know what the pollinating is. And then yesterday I got sunburned just from standing outside. That's how white I am. And I got my period. It was a great week. So that's why you get Stream of Consciousness emo Glitchwitch this week. But Smart Glitchwitch will come back, I promise. She's not dead. She's just taking a vacation. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your favorite David Lynch movie is below. Originally I was going to do a David Lynch tier list. But I was like, that's stupid. They're all good. They're literally all good. There's nothing to, there's not a movie of his I don't like. But let me know what your favorites are. I love all of them. I literally do. I'm not even being hyperbolic. There's not a David Lynch movie I've seen that I haven't liked. But Lost Highway's it for me. I think it really did mold my brain as far as what I want in a horror setting. I just love that movie so much. But yeah, let me know. And as always, if there's any creepypasta or analog horror stories you want me to cover, put them down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please go watch Lost Highway. Or if you want to get your soul sucked out, go watch Inland Empire. Bye!